new beginning.
Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We always appreciate that you guys are listening. It means a lot to us. I know it means a lot to the guests too. And so I'm your host today, Dr. Joshua Black, and our co-hosts today, so Sean and Jade also, they couldn't be here. So just me going solo. So hope you enjoy this episode. So today we have Shivy Galtere, and she's commonly known to her friends and family as Shivy. And she is a celebrity and VIP relations consultant to fashion and lifestyle brands. Originally from London, she located to New York City 3.5 years ago, where she continued to further her career in this field. After the passing of her mother, Devinder Kumaran, less than a year ago, Shivy started at Love Lost Light, an Instagram account with the slogan, "Let's try to understand, help, and heal," with the purpose of helping others navigate through the process of grief with everyday advice versus the psychological and medical advice we are usually exposed to. From decisions about nutrition to the power of smell, these factors have helped her in her journey of grief, and she hopes she may be able to help others in theirs. And that's my hope too. And I've checked out her Instagram account, and it's very beautiful and has really interesting topics of conversation. So hopefully you guys check that out. So Shivy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm extremely excited to be a part of this. So thank you for having me.
All right. So it says here you're a celebrity and VIP relations consultant. Did you go to school for that? How did that come about? Did you grow up where you're a kid and saying, you know what, Mom, I don't want to be a ballerina. I want to be a relations consultant.
Definitely not. I've always wanted to I've always been quite an artistic and creative person. And I love the art. So I actually studied history of art as my bachelor's degree at uni. And then through that, I ended up doing a master's on the history and culture of fashion. And that kind of just led me into the world of fashion. And I loved it. And then I did about 1 million internships where I worked crazy hours and got paid zero money. And then I was very, very lucky, actually. I got my first role, which was by complete coincidence, as a VIP assistant at Burberry, actually. And that's kind of what started my path. And then from there on, I kind of just worked my way through different companies and brands. And yeah, definitely not what I thought I'd be doing as a kid.
Wow, it's so interesting. What tips would you have for someone going through that journey? As you said, it's very difficult to get a paying job. Do you have any tips?
You know what? Just work hard. Honestly, I know it sounds cheesy, but working hard pays off, and just don't give up, because honestly, the amount of companies I emailed, I had very little experience in the industry, but I did millions of internships, like I said, because I felt like having that experience was obviously really valuable. And then eventually, I was lucky that I got some great internships. And actually, my favorite one that I kind of think really helped me was at Vogue India, but in their London office, because I'm from London. And that was great because it really kind of gave me a great insight into that world. And I just worked my butt off, basically. And that's kind of, that's the main tip I think I would give someone looking to go into that industry.
That's interesting. I'm guessing what that did for you probably helped in your grief, in the sense of the personality of working hard and persevering some of the struggles, because that's really what grief's about too. Like, there are times where you're like, this is pointless. Like, why am I doing this?
Oh, for sure.
And same thing with the job. You said, like, you're not getting paid, and you're just like, is this worth it? Like, is this dream I have worth it? And
100%.
So glad it's paying off for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would completely agree with that. I think also the world of fashion is, don't get me wrong, it's glamorous and, great fun. There's great events and great projects to work on. But like any industry, it also comes with a lot of negatives. And you have to be quite thick-skinned to work in this industry, because you kind of you face a lot of hardship as well, and a lot of critique. And you know, I'm not going to lie, the industry is it's materialistic at the end of the day. And so yeah, you've got to be thick-skinned and really stay grounded to be able to work in that industry and not get caught up in all the glamour and yeah, all of that. And so I think that is definitely something that's helped me through grief, because I've managed to stay grounded and yeah, like you said, just work through it. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, like you're right. People like glamorize certain jobs and professions, but there's so many struggles within each profession. And for you to
Yes.
stay grounded, I think it's a great like just tip for anyone is like find a way to stay grounded within any career you're in, because it could destroy you. And then what you wanted to do and what you love just doesn't become fun anymore. And that's horrifying. You know, like it would be like me doing this podcast and hating doing the podcast. Like it'd be the worst thing ever. You know, something that you love and care about so much, that and it doesn't give you that anymore. So I'm glad you're able to stay grounded. Who taught you how to do that, or how did you figure that out? Because I know in schools and university, it can't be a part of the course content.
No, it's not. It's actually, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's necessarily something you learn. I think it's more about the character, the type of person you are. So I'm pretty sociable. I like going out. I'm good at sort of networking and, you know, making friends in my own time, I guess. And it's kind of part of the job with sort of celebrity relations. It's all about relationship management and keeping those contacts to kind of help elevate brands and so forth. And I've been quite good at that. And I think as you kind of start within the business, you meet people, you build those relationships, and that along with hard work is kind of what you need. And then I would say, you obviously, you know, at the end of the day, you're selling lifestyle and fashion brands, so you've got to be kind of in the know in terms of trends and style. So there's an element of creativity you also have to have. And I guess that sort of element came from school. I've always been really artistic and a creative person. So that I think mixed in with my characters kind of got me to where I am, I guess.
And what did your parents sort of think? What did your mom think about this career choice? I know, like with my dad, he really wanted me to be an elementary school teacher, and then
Mm.
after, you know, like now, so he really pushed that throughout my life, and I was actually going to be that until he died, and then that desire fell off, and I decided to do this stuff, do research on grief dreams. So for you, like, was your mom always supportive of the fashion? Was she into fashion? And
Yes,
like,
so my
yeah.
mum was, yeah, my mum was extremely into fashion. She was really creative. So my mum comes from, well, I wouldn't say traditional, but she's from a Punjabi family that lived in London, and typically it's kind of I don't know, I guess there's a sort of tradition with, you know, your daughter or son has to be a doctor or a lawyer, or you know, those kind of stereotypical, you know, amazing jobs. But my mum was always, she was so creative, and I mean, she was an extremely creative person. So what was really lovely was that she really encouraged me to kind of pursue that. You know, she would paint and draw with me, and she actually taught me to draw when I was a kid. And she would always take me to galleries, art exhibitions, all of that. And so she was really, really happy when I sort of, yeah, I kind of got into this field. Plus, she got a lot of the benefits because I would get gifted from, you know, some nice clothes and accessories every once in a while, which she would benefit from. So I don't think she complained too much. But no, she was really, really proud of me. And yeah, it's always lovely to have the support of your parents, and especially my mum. So yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. And they say like that's what we want, you know. We want our family and our parents to be proud of us. And that's so amazing you had that she was there for you and to give you the encouragement and to encourage you through those tough times, as you said, there were many.
Exactly.
Especially not
No.
just in school, but also, you know, I said as you're trying to find, you know, employment. I'm glad she was there.
No, she really was, and she really did support me emotionally, physically with lots of hugs. And because yeah, it was a tough time. It's not like now, now I've had interns that, get and not paid a lot, but they still get paid. And I'm pretty sure that's a minimum requirement these days. And yeah, back in the day when I was working, I was a slave. I was just constantly packing boxes and, like ridiculous sort of menial tasks. But yeah, it can be tough. But like any career, it's the same. So yeah, she was great. She was a real great support.
So when you lived in London, and I guess was she from London too?
So yeah, she actually was born in Nairobi in Kenya, Africa, and I think she was about 10 or 11 when her and her family came to London because at the time there were rumors that Idi Amin was going to kick a lot of the Asian communities out of Africa, and so a lot of them fled, and yeah, they ended up in London, where my mum basically grew up for the remaining part of her life until her last few years, where she was in Goa, in retirement with my dad. But yes, London, to answer your question.
Wow, she has an interesting life. And so, was it weird for you to move from London to New York City? Like, was that a difficult decision in the
No,
sense?
it was.
No,
It
you're like,
actually
I'm out, mom. See you later.
wasn't. I no, I was. My mum as well was really excited for me to move. She knew I was. I'm from London. I grew up pretty much sort of close to central London. I went to school in London, did my bachelor's, my master's in London. I lived away from home, when I was at university, but then I started working and interning in London, and I never left. And I just had this huge desire to that I knew there was something more I had to give. It's a weird feeling. And anyway, I came to New York and I loved New York and I fell in love with it. And I said, okay, I'm going to move here. And just was really lucky that I had the opportunity to do that. And yeah, my mum was so happy that I did that. And she'd never been to America before. Actually, neither of my parents had. So visiting me for the first time was like so exciting for her. And yeah, no, she loved it. So it was sad. It was sad to leave her. But then she had her own adventure with my dad going to Goa. So it kind of all worked out lovely and nicely.
So that's yeah. I remember when I like even just moved away. I was in the same town, but even just like moving away from my mom, she started crying, right? So
Oh, I
the
mean, my mum cried, but it was, yeah, I think it was happy tears as well.
I'm glad she got to visit you. That's got to be a really beautiful memory to have, because she passed, I'm guessing, soon after that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky. She visited me a couple times, and she actually stayed, her and my dad both stayed with me for a few weeks. I think they came each trip, which was really lovely. And yeah, it was well, actually, you know what, the sad thing in a way was that we had actually planned. I hadn't actually seen her for about 9 months, something like that, because we were supposed to all have a family holiday in Malaysia, where my dad's originally from, and she actually passed a few months before that trip, because we've been waiting to see each other all that time. So it was sad, but it kind of, the last time I did see her, she was in New York, and I remember saying goodbye to her, and her and my dad left in the taxi, and I came back to my apartment, and I just burst into tears, and I was just so sad. And I do remember thinking it's quite odd that I cried as much as I did, Oh, I even cried. you know, I've, I hadn't done that before actually. She's always the one that was crying, but I hadn't. And so I always remember, I really remember that feeling when they left. And it's funny now I look back and I sort of think, I'm like, I don't, did my subconscious, I know it sounds a bit crazy, did my subconscious in some weird way know that was the last time I would see her? And yeah, I think back to that often actually. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about because something happened there, and we
Mm.
don't know, but something happened that was different from the other, and because she died, all we can do is sort of like theorize. But yeah, human life is very interesting, and that's when we come to these dreams, we find that even more so about what happens and the dreams people have, and sometimes the events they predict, or that the deceased helps with advice on certain things. So yeah, like this life is still, as I talk to more and more people, it just becomes more and more mysterious. And I just sit in that mystery, of it all.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to understand it all. And we don't have the tools and like the scientific community to understand it, but all you can do is sort of sit with that. And so I'm curious, so can you go through like, so that day of, them, I'm guessing they called you and told you that she died?
Yeah. So I was at the beach all day, and I was with some friends and had a really fun day at the beach. And I hadn't spoken to her, so I normally spoke to her almost every day. Actually, it was kind of a routine. I would get up, I would have my matcha latte, which is very New York, I know. I'd have my matcha latte or my cup of tea, which is a bit more British, and I would call my mum. And usually on the weekends, just because we were both out and stuff, we spoke maybe once, rather than every day. And I don't think I'd spoken to her for a couple of days. And then I went to the beach and I came back, and I usually never have my phone on silent. And I always normally have my phone sort of sitting next to my bed, screen up. But for some reason, I decided to turn my phone on silent and put my phone face down so I wouldn't see the light, basically, if it did go off. And I just remember thinking, you know what, I needed a good night's sleep. And that was what I was thinking. I was like, I need a good night's sleep. I'm just going to put my phone down and that's it. And in the morning, my husband, he normally gets up super, super early. He's one of those crazy early risers. And it was, I want to say about 5 or 6 a.m. and I could hear him on the phone, and I heard him say my dad's name. And I immediately woke up, and I just knew something had happened. And another reason, because which I'll sort of go on to later, is when I woke up, it was very similar to a dream I had about a week before that, which I'll explain later. So I basically, I just knew something had happened. And my husband came in with the phone, and I could tell his face was extremely worried. And he said, Shivy, you need to take the phone. You need to speak to your dad. And I said, no, I don't want to speak to him, because I knew, I was like, God. And I said, no, I don't want to speak to him. And he said, Shivy, you have to take the phone. He has to talk to you. And so I took the phone, and I mean, it was honest. That I think is one of the hardest moments I've ever experienced, because my dad was, obviously in tears, and he just kept saying that he was sorry. He was just like, I'm so sorry, and she's gone. And it was completely out of the blue, because my mum wasn't ill, or we didn't know anything. It was completely unexpected. And I just didn't believe it. And I kept saying to him, no, like what's happened? And then because I could feel his pain so much, it's weird. I don't know. I just kind of got into sort of strong Shivy mode. And I was like, Dad, don't worry. It's fine. I'm going to be there. I'm going to get on a plane now. Just wait there. Like, I don't know. I just kind of, I felt like at that point, I then needed to be a comfort to him. And all I kept thinking about is this dream that I had, because it basically reflected a dream that I had about a week before that. And I kept saying to him, Dad, this is like my dream. This is like my dream. It was all that was coming out. Anyway, got off the phone, and he said, you need to speak to your brother. So what had happened was they had tried to call me because of the time difference. My brother's based in China. My dad's in Goa. So they're ahead of me in time. And so they had tried to call me not long after I had actually put my phone down the night before, and had been trying me all night. But obviously I put my phone on silent, and we didn't see it. And so it was only in the morning, obviously, Jake, my husband, was the first person to wake up. So he obviously saw the calls. And I think back to that, and I can't help but think that my mum almost wanted me to not find out then and there. And I know it sounds a bit bizarre, but I almost feel like she wanted me to have a good night's sleep and then wake up and deal with it. It sounds so weird, but that is just the kind of thing she would do anyway. She'd leave telling me and my brother things until the morning. So we'd, get a good night's sleep, or, get some rest. And then yeah, after that, it was a bit of a roller coaster, because we had to get emergency visas to India. And so I ended up going to the Indian embassy in New York that day, which was a nightmare, and doing a whole load of like admin things that you shouldn't be doing. But I just did it, and then eventually, after a whole load of crazy things that were happening, managed to get my visa through, and we flew the next day to Goa. And God, that was a bit of a nightmare journey as well, but that's another story for another time. Yeah, and that was it, really.
Wow, like I'm listening to the story, and it's like the amount of work you needed to do just to go home, and you just want to cry. You just want to, like, be with your family and more. And then there's so many things that was just causing more stress, causing more complications. And it's hard to also grieve while you're trying to, on a plane, or trying to get the papers, like,
yeah.
I'm guessing you suppressed a lot of that to try to just get through and get there.
Yeah, I initially, obviously, I mean, I was pretty hysterically crying. I was, beyond. I was, the pain was, I can't even describe. And but then you just go into this crazy sort of, I can't even explain it, because it's still such a blur. But I remember it really clearly that day, particularly just because, yeah, I had to get into strong mode for my dad, and also my brother, who was in China at the time, and he was in the middle of China, and the only place he had internet was a Starbucks cafe. And so he was just sitting in a random Starbucks, just trying to hold it together to be on the phone to me. And he similarly he was trying to get visas to go to India from China, and it was crazy. And I was really lucky. I had the help of my friends, and obviously my husband, Jake, and a really good friend of mine, Michael, who had actually also lost his mum about 9 months before, I think, who just kind of both came in and just saved the day, really, and sort of helped me. But yeah, the journey to Goa was pretty crazy, because, I mean, I'll just give you an example. We got on the flight finally, and we were sat on the tarmac for 5 hours because a storm all of a sudden just literally occurred over us. So we were sat on the tarmac for 5 hours, and therefore the flight was delayed. So we obviously missed our connecting flight. And then there wasn't a connecting flight, so they had to, this airline was trying to put us onto another flight. To this day, I couldn't even tell you where I were connected. I think it was Doha. I have no idea because I was in such a blur by this point. I have no idea what country I was in. I just was kind of going with the flow. Then they lost my luggage, which I didn't get for a week or so. But in that moment, I did not care. I just did not care. My main goal was to just be with my dad. And what was funny was I just felt like so many things were kind of going wrong, and I didn't understand it. And then it was only the day of Mum's funeral, which she had a cremation, which we did in Goa. And then weirdly enough, the morning of the funeral, my suitcase appeared outside the front door of this place in the middle of India. And honestly, this never happens. This never happens. But it was kind of a bit of a miracle. And so I had clothes to wear for the funeral, which I thought I didn't have. And then everything all of a sudden just kind of started going okay. But yes, it was yeah, I did suppress a lot of emotions during that time. But it had to be done.
Wow, that's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, I'm just trying to think, like, even if like I wasn't grieving, it was on the tarmac for 5 hours, like people
Oh God,
go
yeah.
crazy. I've heard stories just on reading like newspapers and stuff, how people kind of go insane in those situations. So like for you to be grieving and trying to get somewhere really like fast and not be able to go, like I can't imagine sort of that suffering that you're under. But I'm glad you end up getting there, and like what a beautiful ending to a story that your luggage appears right before. So how was the funeral like for you? Like was it, I'm guessing it was kind of small?
Yeah, it wasn't. So initially I was actually unsure. I don't know if it's unsure. I felt uncomfortable with the fact that we were doing the funeral in Goa initially, because even though Mum lived there, it just didn't feel quite right at the time. But it's weird how quickly that changed. So there was a few things. In India, the morgues, it's not sort of, it's not, how can I put it? It's not sort of fashioned in a way like it is in America or England, in the sense that it's pretty raw. I mean, I'll just give you an example. We got to, it is literally a morgue. And we arrived the morning of the funeral, and they had literally just trolleys of bodies going in and out. And it's in the middle of this sort of jungle sort of space, and it's very, pretty raw. And I was really upset that mum was there. But that's all, that's the only place she could be, because she was in India. And it's just this is normal. This is normal, in India, and that's fine. But I think because I wasn't used to it, I think coming from quite a Western culture, I was sort of, kind of initially uncomfortable with it. But then when, so in the Indian tradition as well, the women dress the body. So the women that are sort of close to the lady that's passed, and so my aunts my mum's two sisters were there. So I was really grateful that they did that. I was definitely that morning not feeling great, and I didn't feel like I could do it. And I knew that my mum wouldn't have wanted me to dress it either, because growing up she always kept me away from funerals and was always like, you don't have to go, you don't have to, and so I didn't. But my two aunts dressed her, and when they called me and they say, look, you can come and see her now. And what was crazy, as soon as I saw her, I just had this feeling of complete calm. And then everything from then on was just completely calm and actually quite beautiful. And I'll explain that, because so the other thing was the cremation is not, again, like in, I guess, Western culture, where, the coffin sort of goes into a little, I mean, I don't know if normally, when my grandmother passed a few years ago, you just saw it kind of go into a little room, and that was it. Whereas in India, they do open fires. And so my dad told us that this was going to happen. And I think this had also was part of the build up that I was not looking forward to. And so me and, we all sort of discussed before. We said, we'll go there initially and we don't need to watch anything. But the crazy thing was we did the, so I'm going back and forth with the story. I saw her at the morgue, then we traditionally you take the body to the house where we did some prayers, and a few their friends came, and then obviously my aunts and my uncle who had flown over were also there. And then we went to the crematorium, which is literally just an open space in this sort of jungle, and we continued doing some prayers. And what was actually really interesting is my mum was a very spiritual person. So she wasn't very much religious, very spiritual. But there was one prayer, she was brought up as a Sikh, and there was one prayer she really loved. And weirdly, the guys that were kind of leading the prayers started singing this one prayer that she loved, completely coincidentally. And it was almost like a chant. And the more and more they did it, sort of all of the friends and family started singing this. And it was really, really powerful. And my mum really, I've always remembered my mum saying she liked it because she was very spiritual. So she believed in chakras. And she always said that the vibrations of this particular chant reached all of your chakras. And it was a very spiritual thing that she loved. And yeah, it was coincidence they were kind of singing this prayer. And
do you know what it was called?
It was Satnam, and I couldn't actually tell you the exact what that means, but it was Satnam is what it was. And I believe it's obviously a Sikh prayer, but I know it's used in other cultures as well, that particular phrase, because I think there's something about, I think, like when you say how people say it, because as far as I believe, and I might be wrong here, but my kind of interpretation is that it causes a vibration in your body which stimulates your chakras, and Satnam has a sort of similar meaning behind it. So it was quite bizarre that happened, but then but also really powerful, and that's all I can really say. I'm not a religious. I'm a very spiritual but not a religious person, and you really felt an energy when everyone was chanting this. And it wasn't even a chant. It was almost like just a little prayer. I don't know, but yeah, it felt really, really powerful. And then
what we'll do is we'll put a
Yeah.
link to, maybe, I'm guessing there's a YouTube video of that prayer, so we'll put a link to that
Yeah.
so people can hear it.
That would be
Yeah.
great. Yeah. And then we made our way to the crematorium, which, like I said, was in this sort of open jungle space. And I was really nervous about it because essentially it was just a load of wood, pile of wood, and the coffin is placed on the wood and then set alight. And you're not really exposed to that in sort of most Western cultures. You're not exposed to sort of seeing that. But it was a really beautiful experience. And the only way I can describe why is because, like I said, my mum was very spiritual, but she loved nature. And there was something really raw, but grounding and beautiful and natural and how it should be. It felt very right for mum at the time. And I can't say much more than that. And so we actually all sat and watched this fire burn for however long it was. I couldn't even tell you. And because we felt like we wanted to be with her during that time. And it was really powerful, and it was crazy because you had the fire burning. It rained a bit as well, which is very auspicious in the Indian culture. And the wind was creating these, the ash, like the ashes from the fire with the wind were creating these like incredible shapes on the floor. And it just, there was something really very sort of, yeah, like grounding and at one with nature. I can't really explain it. And the crazy thing was, as the fire was dying down, me and myself and Jake were walking back towards the sort of the car, and all of a sudden this huge like banyan tree in the distance just snapped in half. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it was crazy because everyone just sort of, and it made this huge noise, and all of these birds and just sort of flew over us, and the noises of these animals around us just was so insane that every single person there, including the guys that worked at the crematorium, everyone just looked at each other in sort of disbelief, like, sorry, did that just happen? This huge tree just snapped in half. Like, that never happens. And it just, there was this really powerful feeling of nature that we all felt at the time. And it was somewhat comforting. And it almost, I could almost, you know, feel that was a sign of some sort, and we felt like we could feel mum in nature or just around us. And to me that was really beautiful, and I'm really happy everything happened the way it did.
Wow, that is beautiful. And you're right, like there's moments, yeah, I hear it often. There's these moments during a ceremony that people have a feeling that their loved
Mm.
one's there. And it gives them great comfort, right? Like there's more to the story almost. And it keeps them, I said, grounded. And for the animals to be there, and for just like the little rain, the wind, like I can't, that's such the imagery is so beautiful and how you described it. Because in Western culture, even with my dad's, he just, you're at a church or you put him in the ground and that's it. But what you're describing is so much more, I don't know, it's more grounding, or maybe a little more beautiful in the sense of the process of life and death.
Mm.
Like being
It,
in nature and all that, it seems like it's a cycle of life almost, right? That, Lion King.
yeah. Yeah.
But like,
Love that
like,
movie.
and to see the body, the casket burn is different, because I know a lot of people who come on, they say they just get the ashes come to them sometimes in the mail or in the funeral home kind of thing. And they don't actually see it. And so for you to actually be there when it happens, that's its own has its own beauty to it.
Yeah.
So wow,
Yeah.
that's a very, I said, like, beautiful story. The whole thing, it's,
Yeah.
and it's one that you'll never forget, which is,
I won't. Yeah.
yeah, because it's just so magical in its own way.
100%. I think that's the way to describe it, is definitely magical. And, you know, I always kind of have this joke that mum is Mother Nature. And then it was weird how that happened, because I kind of really felt like she was almost. And yeah, no, it was beautiful and magical. And everything happened for a reason, I believe.
Mm. There is one thing I'm curious about. That dream that you
Mm.
teased us about that
Oh
you
yeah.
had. What was that? Like, could you just go through that dream? Like, I'm really curious.
Yeah, so about about a week before my mum passed, I had a dream that she passed. And I can't tell you, I honestly don't remember sort of much about the dream itself in terms of the physical things that happened in the dream. It was more the feeling I remember, because I felt that. Really felt like I could feel the feelings I was feeling in the dream. And it was an insane amount of pain. And it's the feeling of after the dream is the feeling my mum had passed, and the pain I was experiencing after her passing. And it really hurt. And part of that dream was also waking up to hearing of her passing. And it was kind of like I can't remember a lot more about it, but it was enough that I woke up and I was so relieved that it didn't happen. And I I couldn't stop thinking about it, because I felt a bit uneasy, but I was like so relieved. I was like, it was just a dream. And then I spoke to my mum later that day, and I said, "Oh, by the way, Mum, before I forget, I had this dream and you passed away in it." And she just paused, and she said, "You know, maybe it's my rebirth." And I was like, "What?" And she, "What do you want about?" And she said, "No, maybe it's my rebirth," because she had quite an emotional couple of weeks just before that. Like I said, she's very spiritual. She practiced Reiki. She was a master of Reiki, so she practiced that a lot. And my mum in her sort of past had experienced a lot of, like trauma, I guess, and the passing of her own mother, a lot of family pain as well. And she was she's always very sensitive. She was a Cancer sign, which I think means she was also quite sensitive. I think that's a trait of cancers. And she had a tough couple of weeks. She really felt like she was dealing with a lot of past issues in her life, and but she felt like she had come out of them and she had really put them to bed. And so when I told her, I said, "Oh, I obviously dreamt of you passing." She said maybe it was a rebirth, because she had dealt with a lot of issues that she had been facing and felt really good about the future. And yeah, but it was just very weird. I really think back to that conversation because I remember it so clearly, because I was walking through the door with my groceries, putting them down, and I thought, "Oh, by the way, before I forget, I have to tell you this dream." And just I didn't expect her reaction, and so it really sort of stuck with me. And then about, I think it was less than a week later, how I woke up was exactly how I woke up in my dream. And like the sun, how it sort of shines. The sun in the room only shines through a particular window at a certain time of the morning, which is really early in the morning. And in my dream, it was shining through just like it did when the morning I actually found out. And so for me, that's just not a coincidence. You know, I have had dreams before where, you know, there is some truth to it, and I've kind of thought, okay, I don't know, I've not really thought much more into it. But after that dream, I still feel so strongly that that was not a coincidence, and I dreamt that for a reason, and I don't know what that reason is, and I don't know why I dreamt that. But my mum wasn't unwell. It was completely unexpected. So for me to dream that a week before it actually happened, there must be more to it. I just don't know what that is. And so
Yeah.
since, I really pay attention to my dreams.
Wow, that's so interesting. So it actually helped you value dreams a little bit more. Yeah, I
Oh
wonder
yeah.
too, because I've heard this from multiple people. I even heard people that had dreams of their deceased loved one coming to them,
Mhm.
basically saying goodbye, and then they wake up and the person unexpectedly has died in the night. And so there's different things
Oh
that,
wow.
yeah, different things that occur. Even I said the precog dreams of death, like this is throughout, you hear this throughout any kind of religion. It's in the scriptures that this occurs, and so you like it
Mm.
makes you wonder a little bit too about like so the planning of things and when things occur and what's actually going on. Like, do we have a sense? Like, is there just a sense of maybe something's going to go on? But yeah, it's wild you
Mm.
had that, and I think it's even crazier that you told your mom about it. 'Cause
Yeah.
someone may have said, "Oh, them, maybe I am going to die," and then they uh, they freak out. But
Mm.
she didn't go there. Or maybe she did. You just don't know
No.
about it, right? Like if
Yeah.
she, like if someone told me that, I would ponder my own mortality a little bit and say,
Yeah.
am I ready to
Yeah.
die? Like, is there anything else I need to do or left unsaid? And if not, then cool. I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing. But yeah, I wonder, like if it's just for you to value dreams more, is it for you to sort of understand that there's more to this life? I
I
don't
think
know.
I think
Yeah.
I the way I have interpreted it is that there's definitely something more to life than we know it, and to not take things black and white. Like it's definitely opened my eyes into spirituality in a sense, but also, yeah, just not take things black and white. Like we have so much science and we're so advanced in so many ways, but we're also so behind in a lot. Not, I wouldn't even say behind, but we're so ignorant to a lot of things. We're people sitting in a sphere in the middle of a universe that we don't even know what's out there, and to just say it was a coincidence is the easy answer.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, it's, yeah, not seeing things in black and white and being open-minded to different interpretations, different things, and I think that's definitely given me a new approach in life as well. In terms of I've always been I would like to think I've always been a good listener, and a people person, but I'm really interested in hearing other people's takes on life, or, whatever it is. I feel like there's more to just what we know. And to answer your question about my mum, did she freak out? Or the funny thing is that she was so calm when she said it. And I truly believe she thought she was having a rebirth in some sense. And in a way she was, I guess. She kind of dealt with a lot of past, yeah, trauma, I would say. And she was finally at a good place. And so maybe in some weird way that, yeah, she was having a rebirth of thoughts. And an interesting thing is, she always said to me, she's like, look, when it's my time to go, just know that, be at peace to know that it was my time and I was ready.
Mm.
And what was really interesting, the doctor that, was with her at the time of her passing said to my dad, I've never seen somebody or been with somebody who was so ready to go like she was, like so at peace about going. She was very calm about it. And I think in some weird way, I don't know. I think it was her time. I just don't know the rest of it. Like why I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out, and maybe I never will. But yeah, I feel all of those sort of things give me a bit of peace, I guess.
I think that's the beauty of it, right? Is to think about stuff in a form that it can help you understand a little bit more and reduce some of the biases you do have, to sit in that gray area a little bit and be okay in that gray area. So like if things
Yeah,
are not black and white, and same thing with me, like dreams have taught me a lot of that too, of sitting in the gray. Like we don't know really anything about, not much about dreams in general. We don't really know, we know some stuff about sleep, but there's so many more mysteries, even to the human body. And we're trying to, we don't even understand like the human body, like how are we going to understand life, the universe and
yeah,
all that, right? There's so many unanswered questions. But I think it's great that your mom was at peace. Like she was ready to go in the sense. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
wish that upon myself, when my time comes, that I am ready.
yeah,
That seems beautiful to me, is to be able to live a
yeah,
life and be able to let it go when it happens, to not like cling to it. Um,
for
yeah.
sure, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little about your Instagram, since
Oh yeah,
yeah, so you just started that off and you're trying to make a difference
yeah,
in this world before you pass.
yeah,
Yeah, so you can go very calm and and peaceful.
yeah, for sure.
So why did you start this? So what's the point of the Instagram page, Love, Loss, and Light?
Yeah, so I guess, I obviously work in a lot of fashion, which, like I said, is, I've really enjoyed. But I think definitely, I think for a long time now, I don't know whether it's kind of, it had been necessarily fulfilling me the way it used to. I think that that's come with me growing up a lot, and my interests and things sort of changing as I got older. And I've always just loved helping people and volunteering, and I've done sort of a lot of charity work in the past, and I loved it. But I always found myself back into fashion. At the end of the day, you've got to pay bills, and I've always kind of had to end up doing that, which, I never complained about because I loved it. But I think definitely after my mum passed, I really felt a need to do something more than I was doing. And I just, I actually was doing a sound bath meditation, and which I kind of just, I actually started doing I took a couple of months off, which I was lucky to do, and traveled around Asia and did a couple of sound bath meditations there, which really, really changed my life. I had kind of some crazy experiences there, but also I just think it's a great way to relax your mind and your body. If you find it difficult to meditate and take that time out of your day, which I always found really difficult. So doing the sound meditation gave me some focus. And during that, I just had this idea. And my idea was that I wanted to help people going and experiencing grief, but help them in sort of the everyday ways that people don't talk about. I think, there's countless books on grief, and how you cope with grief, and the science behind it, and the psychological aspects of it. But there were everyday things that I felt like, and I'm no expert either. I'm not sort of claiming to be an expert at all. But there are little things that definitely helped me, and I know have helped friends, that I kind of just thought would be nice to put out there for people that are going through the same thing, to kind of read about and maybe help them. And it might not help them, but my whole idea was that if it helps one person, well, I've kind of done my job. And these are just, completely varying things. I mean, one recent post I did was about the effects of caffeine and alcohol. They actually overstimulate your body sometimes, causing anxiety. And anxiety is something that a lot of people face these days, but especially through grief, it can feel quite overwhelming. So little tips like that I've kind of provided, just to kind of maybe cut those down a little bit, just to help your state of calmness every day. Things like the power of smell, how certain essential oils can help you, or smells that kind of provide a level of nostalgia. It's just, everyday little things. It's not medical advice. It's nothing official. It's just little tips here and there that I found really useful. And so far, I'm still sort of starting out with this, but I've received some really, really incredible heartfelt messages from strangers, which is also amazing because I kind of just expected some of my friends to follow it. But I've had some incredible messages that have already meant so much, that certain posts have helped people in their journey. And I'm just going to continue working on it, and hope it continues to help people.
No, that's good. I think it, like doing something and trying to help the world as you're trying to do. I think that's beautiful. And with grief, you realize, once you go through it, you sort of realize the horror of it, and like what you kind of wish, people would have said to you, and how they could support you. And you're just trying to do that for people on their own journey, because can be very lonely. And I'm guessing, I know in my grief, and a lot of people who've come on, they say, there's some friends that are there and they really support you, but then there's other people that don't. And so you can you can feel very lonely at the end. And these posts can actually help people feel connected again. And that's why I really love what you're doing. And I checked out, I read them all, and I like it. I really do. It has its own unique flair, because like I said, like there's other things out there, like, for like ours, like we sort of focus on the dreams and then like everyday like motivational quotes and kind of stuff like that. But I like what you do. It's like you actually you tell a story of your life, and why you're saying what you're saying, and then you're giving people just another thing to think about when it comes to their grief that they probably may not have. Because I know, like when you talked about the power of smell, and you talked about your mom being in aromatherapy and stuff, I'm like, wow, like that's interesting to me, because like my dad never really had a smell per se. He didn't have like a cologne or anything like that. But like people have a certain scent to them, and I can only imagine like when they maybe smell that at a store, like what memories come to mind, and how difficult that could be if you're not expecting it.
100%. It was even like the other day, I was in a store actually, and I was walking past the perfume counter, and I just smelt my mum, but from a different time in her life. And the smell, it was kind of crazy, the power of that scent, what that did to me, and this nostalgic feeling it created inside of me, and the memories it kind of formed in my head. And I went back, and it was a lady just spraying this perfume, and it was a Calvin Klein Eternity perfume, which my mum wore for a few years when I was younger of her life. She experimented a few times, and that was one I really remembered, because I remembered I was really little, but she wore it for a few years, especially in the summer, and it really just took me back, and I thought, gosh, that is so powerful. And it was honestly just really made my day, because I was just taken back, and I felt I had like so much comfort from this smell. And I have loads of friends that have kind of experienced similar sort of things. And I felt like it was just something that I hadn't personally read about. or seen, but it's little things like that that I just wanted to share with people, because I think there are little things that we can do to help our journey, and little things that we're unaware of that can help. So yeah, I'm just kind of being a small voice to kind of try and help. That's all.
Hey, it's more than most people, do. So, you're taking your story and you're sharing it, and you're being vulnerable and sharing it to the world. And I think,
Yeah.
people will find it. Will be drawn towards it because the stuff is real, and real stuff is hard to find a lot, especially on Instagram. So,
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. And I think that's what I was sort of saying. It's I think coming from the world of fashion, it's it has its positives, but yeah, I wanted to do something that had a little bit more substance, and being vulnerable and kind of putting myself out there with the posts as well has been challenging, but also really therapeutic. So yeah, I just hope that people, like you, I hope people like reading them, and it helps a few people at least,
Well,
that's all I can hope for.
and it's already have, right? So your job is done.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so now it's just all a bonus. And so it's amazing to get that, right, from feedback from strangers, and more people will come and just say, wow, like, thank you. And I think, like with me doing the research that I do, that was something that I was taken back by, because in academia, no one cares really what you do. And so,
Yeah.
and like they want to know if you're gonna get paid for participating. That's what they care about.
Yeah.
But no, for the grief dream stuff, people are like, they thank me for it. I'm like, wow, like I never thought, but it made me feel really good that like what I was doing is valuable. And that meant something to me. And I guess the same thing for you is like, this means something, because there are people out there that are reaching out and saying thank you to this perfect stranger, right? Because your friends did it, it's not the same. It's the strangers that it really
Exactly.
changes how you view it. And why I like the power of smell too, because I can only imagine there are people out there, maybe if they lose a spouse or something, that one reason why they don't want to get rid of the clothes or maybe wash the sheets is because you're going to lose the smell of the person.
Yeah.
And so it just made me really think of all these different areas in people's life that we don't talk about. And I, personally, have never really heard much about that, but just because I never had that with my father either. So, but you have. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. So I wonder if your dreams have, that within it too, because there's some people who do say with dreams that they have of their deceased loved ones, that there is a smell sometimes that's a part of the image. Does that ever happen to you or no?
I wouldn't say. I think. I don't think necessarily with my dreams that smell has been a part of my dreams. I wouldn't say that. I think my dreams so far are definitely more a feeling, like the one I had of like the one I was explaining about that I had of my mum passing before she passed. That was more about like the feeling I had, that it really sort of hit the core of me, and I woke up and I could feel what I was feeling in the dream. And that, I think, has kind of been the biggest, I guess, sensory takeaway from my dreams, rather than a sense of smell. But it's really interesting that there's if people have a connection between smells and dreams. That to me sounds really interesting.
And so have you had like your own dreams of your mom since she's passed?
Yeah, I've actually had a few, and they've been completely different. Different actually, but then saying there's been one similarity with most of the dreams has been the most recent dreams I've had of her. She's wearing white in them, wearing white, and she's a slightly younger version of herself, and she looks really happy, just really, really happy. And the last dream I had of her, she's hugging me. And actually, I had this dream a few nights ago, So it's kind of, I guess, a bit more sort of vivid in my memory. But I am walking through like an airport gate, and she's waiting for me with my dad, but I can't really sort of notice my dad as much. I know he's there, I just can't really see him. But I really I'm looking at my mum's face, and she's probably about 10 or 20 years younger than, I would say, yeah, 20 years younger than maybe when she passed. And she's wearing white. So it's very glamorous. And she's got really I think she's got a blow dry actually. So went all out, and she's just really happy, and she's hugging me, and she's telling me how much she's missed me, and how it's been so long since we've seen each other. But I woke up, and I really, that feeling of just like relief and comfort and happiness and love, I just woke up feeling. And almost, not that I had forgotten, not that I had forgotten what it's like to sort of be with my mum, but a little bit, I guess I've pushed it to the side a little bit, and I really woke up remembering that. And I felt quite sad, because it was sort of, just a reminder. But I also felt like so much comfort with that as well. And I've had numerous dreams I've had of her. My mum's wearing white, and I feel like that's symbolic in some way, but I don't know how.
Did she ever wear white? Like, was that like a common?
Yeah, I mean, she definitely did. I mean, she always wore sort of white linen shirts. And so in numerous dreams, she's wearing something similar. But then, in the Indian tradition, you wear white to funerals. So red and like lots of color are usually the colors you wear at weddings, unlike sort of, Western dress, which is the white dress, and white you wear at funerals. But I think there's, similarly with the Western culture, there's this idea of purity with the symbolism of white. I don't know. I don't know. But there's almost something comforting about the fact that she's always wearing white in my dreams. So it's definitely a source of comfort.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see the details that stay the same and some that change, and even her being younger, I think, is really interesting, because it is like something that is common. But some people, it's like who they are when they've died. Like that's the age that they're always at. And so it's nice how she's younger and healthier. So she's like the best version of herself in front of you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's I think, that's definitely also a theme, is most of the dreams I have had of her, she is her younger self. And she's full of health and vitality and just energy and happiness. And she just has this gorgeous, gorgeous smile. And that's I think, that's the version of how I almost remember. And and then there was, so that was sort of one of the more recent dreams that I had. And I think the first dream I had of Mum after she passed was really interesting. It was, we were in my grandmother's old house, and I was in the corridor, and my dad was in the living room, sort of talking to people, entertaining, and I'm standing in the corridor looking at him, and my mum starts walking past me wearing white again, holding a plate of roti. So it was a particular roti that I really liked, which is an Indian flatbread, and it's stuffed with potatoes. And it was delicious because you have it with lots of butter, and it's really bad for you, but really good. And she's holding this plate, and I'm obviously aware that she shouldn't be there. Like she's gone, but I'm like, Mum, oh my God. And I'm looking at her, and she's saying, she said, oh, I just want to feed you guys. That's why she's carrying the rosti. She's like, she's like, I need to feed you. How are you going to eat? And what was funny about that is she would always say that to me. I'm 32, okay, so I can definitely feed myself. But, you know, up until she passed, she would always feel so guilty that she couldn't cook for me. And I was like, I would say to her she's ridiculous because I'm more than capable of cooking. You know, I'm an all right cook. But she just had this motherly guilt where she just felt like she should always be giving to me and my brother. So there was a symbolism of that in the dream. And then she was sort of fixated at my dad. So she walks into the room in the dream and she goes to my dad and they talk, or she does something for him, it gives him the food, and then she kind of steps out again, and she just stands in the corridor just watching him through the door. And what was interesting is no one else in the dream, all the people that are in the living room can't see her. It's just my dad that can see her. And she just watches him, and she's complaining to me. She's like, oh, he spilt something on his shirt. And I don't know, it was a really bizarre dream, but again, provided me with some comfort in some way, because I felt like it was a symbolic that she was sort of still watching over my dad. And yeah, that was the first dream I had after she passed.
Wow, it's a very interesting dream, because you're right. Like, we don't really know sometimes what we need as we move through the grief process. But at that time, there's probably something about worrying about your dad, you know, and what's going to happen, because you got to fly back sooner or later, you know, and, you know, he's going to be, you know, with himself. And almost like it definitely, I don't know, I could see it, like it provides comfort, and to know that he's not alone, that your mother is still watching out for him. But I think it's funny how, like, some of the comments she was making, you know, like she always spilled something on her shirt. Like, I'm guessing, was your dad like that guy that like things just always end up on his shirt?
Yep. That's Dad.
That's so
He's gonna
funny.
hate me for saying that.
That's so funny, but that's what I love about these dreams. Like, I would never know that about your family, but now I do. Like,
yeah.
There's so many little things that are so distinct to you and your relationship and your family, that it's so beautiful. And even her motherly guilt, I love how you said that, right? Like, always wanting to feed you. It's so cute and so adorable. And you're like, I'm 35. But just looking back on that, it makes me smile a lot, right? Just, I'm like, wow, like, what a caring mother. And just like, she's just so used to that. That's how she felt like she could love you the most, is through food and feeding you. And I guess as a mom, you know, that's what happens. But then you grow up, right? And like, whatever happens to those skills that she was, you know, so good at, you know, I guess now it goes to hugging, and that's what you were saying in your other dream. It's more about the hugs now, and telling you she cares.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It was you know, it was interesting because I similarly had just, I guess, another dream that I think you might find interesting was there was a couple. There was one which was me and my brother. We were children, so I'm walking with my brother, playing with my brother as kids, and we're playing, and we're kind of following my parents, who are again younger versions of themselves, walking through this incredible, I want to say, like, it almost looked like a magical rainforest. Like, you could feel the humidity, but the you could feel like that kind of humidity, but the freshness from the so much like foliage and greenery around us, and just like the light, how it kind of, the sun shone through like the trees and almost creates like a rainbow effect. Like, we're kind of walking through this magical place, but me and my brother as kids in it were playing and following my parents. And I woke up from that dream just so happy, because it was such a beautiful dream. Like, if it was a painting, it would be the most magnificent painting. But what was really interesting about that is we like, I think I said earlier, we planned a trip to Malaysia with Mum, and we did it still. We still went. It was my dad and my brother and my husband, and we took a journey to a little adventure to Sepalok, which is this jungle in Borneo. And what was really interesting is as we were walking through this incredibly beautiful, very hot jungle, where we actually went to see orangutans. It was an orangutan sanctuary. It was just like the dream. And it was only as we were walking through, I was like, gosh, this is exactly like the dream that I had. And I just thought that was quite interesting, because again, it reflected real life, and it was just kind of weird and magical how that happened.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And like colors, like the vibrant colors you're talking about. Like, I don't know if I've had like anything like that personally. And so it's like it's very unique to you, and I'm guessing colors are a big thing in the fashion world. That means something really to you. And it's so weird you're a child. Like that's like out of all the things, like you're a child.
That's the thing that I think I found most interesting, because I am a child and I'm playing with my little brother, and we're actually playing, and I'm kind of I like to sort of talk when I was a kid, so I was sort of walking around talking nonsense and kind of playing with him, and just, you know, running around like a monkey, and that was my mum's nickname for me. It was her cheeky monkey. So she would always, like up until now, she used to answer the phone and call me her cheeky monkey or her little munchkin. And I'm like, gosh, I'm 32, but yeah, okay. But it just, it was, that was actually quite, that was quite peculiar to me, but also really beautiful, because there was like an innocence about that time that, it was really comforting as well. So yeah, I thought you might enjoy that one.
Yeah, you have all sorts of very interesting different ones too. I'm curious if you're going to have a dream where you're going to be either the same age as your mom or older than your mom in the future as you age, because you're 32 now, and you said like she comes younger. I wonder if, like, as you move forward, if she'll remain, I guess she was around 40 or 50 in those dreams.
Well, so she was 60 when she passed. So she just had her 60th birthday, and she had her 60th birthday a month, less than a few weeks before, which I didn't even realize until I'm talking to you. So in the dreams, most of the dreams that I'm having, she's actually around sort of 35, 40 mark, and 35 I feel like was a prime age for her. Like I really remember, I have so many memories when she was 35, and I couldn't tell you why. But I just really remember that as a kid, and always just thought she was just so beautiful, and around that age, because she just the makeup she wore and all of that. I mean, she was always beautiful, but that particular age really sticks in mind. And I guess that's the kind of 35 to 40 is kind of around the age that she's appearing in my dreams.
Do you think?
You're really.
Do you think it'll be weird when you let's say when you're 50 and you have a dream of her when she's 35?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure, but then no, but then no, maybe, because that's how I remember her,
right?
And that's like my memories of her are that age, and so yes and no. I'm sure it'd be quite strange when I'm sort of 60, you know, thinking of her at 30, but no, I think because I have such amazing memories of her at that age, like that's how she's forever going to be with me, you know. And so yes and no.
Oh, that's wild. Wow. So I'm glad you continue to have these dreams, and they're very comforting to you. There's one question we like to ask at the end of our podcast, and that is, if you could have a dream tonight of your mom, what would that dream look like to you?
I think, it's something I actually think about often. I think what you hope from a dream about the person that you love that's passed is words of comfort. So telling me it's all going to be okay, and that everyone's going to be okay. My dad, my brother, that I'm going to be okay, selfishly, and that I'm doing the right thing and in life, I guess, and I'm going the right direction, and not to worry about anything, because I think that's the thing I miss about my mum, is that she was such a comfort to me. So anything, whether it be relationships, work, friends, anything, if I ever had a stress with anything, she was such a comfort to me, and always understood me, always gave me great advice, always, is still, the only person I think that really truly understood me and loved me. And I have so many people that love me,
or understand you.
Yeah, I definitely do, because I'm so lucky with the friends and family I have. I really, really am. So I'm not just ignoring them. But there's a difference with the motherly love. There's a connection you have with your mother that she just really, I just felt so much love, unconditional, just love from her. And so the advice and support she would give me daily was just such a comfort to me. And I really relied on that. And whether it was a few words just to say it's going to be okay, it was that reassurance that I got from her, that she was the only person I think that has ever given me reassurance. It's going to be fine. My dad does well. My dad's amazing at it. I guess it was just different with my mum. I don't know if it's because they're both girls as well. I don't know. But there was, a reassurance and a comfort from her that I miss. So if I could have a dream with her giving me that reassurance through words or action, I think that would just mean so much to me, because I could hold on to that, as I continue my journey. And I think to answer your question, it would be that.
I like that. And I think it points to the fact too that, when someone dies, it's not just that they're gone, but there's these other losses that they're so implemented in your, living the life in a positive way. They said, she gave you support. She was the one you would go to for support when you're feeling a little off. And I think that's beautiful. You had that. And those are the people that, when, they do die, it affects us so much, because now we're almost left on our own. And you said you have friends and you have other family, but it's still not the same, because there's something that you trusted in her more than almost yourself in a way, because she knew you so well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
So what place? You could be any place in the universe. Where would you want this dream to take place? I
mean, definitely on a tropical beach somewhere, because that's what I feel most time. I mean, that's that would be. I do feel. My mum would always tell me to ground myself. She always said that, I need grounding, because I think because of the jobs that I do and the lifestyle that I lead, and there's so much stress and late nights and all of that she would always say you need to ground yourself. But I never really connected necessarily. She would always say, oh, you should garden, but there's not much room to garden in New York, so I've never that never really appealed to me. But whenever I'm in the sea or on the beach and lying in the sun, that to me just feels so grounding. Just having my feet on the sand and listening to the ocean and the salt water is really, really grounding to me. So jokes aside, I think that would be pretty nice for me. It would have a lot of, I think, meaning behind it.
I like that. No, that's nice. And then, so she's wearing white. What are you wearing?
Mm-hmm.
And do you have a color in mind?
Oh, good question. I have no idea. I just didn't. It's funny because whenever I dream of myself, I guess most people don't. I don't know. I never see myself, if that makes sense. I only am seeing it through the eyes of me. What color would I wear? I don't know. I would be wearing gold of some sort though, because I love gold jewelry. So I guess that's sort of the signature thing that I wear every day is some type of gold jewelry. So we'll stick with that.
All right, cool. That's cool. What a cool dream.
Let's hope I have it now.
Yeah, if you do, you have to let me know for sure.
Oh my God, for sure.
And so just wrapping up the podcast now, once again, where can people find you if they want to share their story or check out your post and maybe even just thank you for, what you do?
I mean, definitely you can, I think probably the best way is check out at Love Lost Light, and you can just direct message me on there. And follow my post if you like. You don't have to. But I'd love to hear people's stories, or if this has helped in some way, or just sharing their stories just to start a conversation. I'd love to speak to others who are going through the same thing, because hopefully I can help them and they can help me maybe, So I'm totally open to that. So
I like that, because we're all doing this together. And as I said, like, I learn a lot just from your stories about different things that I haven't really thought of. And so I'm guessing the more people you talk to, the maybe different tips or different things you'll talk about on your posts, which is
for sure,
which is great.
I'd love to. I mean, one thing I would love to hear, and I love talking to people, and I'd love to hear any tips people could give to me that I can also post about, because similarly, I'm still learning. I'm kind of still in the beginning stages of this journey, and so I'd totally be open to hearing other people's stories. And you're right, we're all in this together. So I really believe strongly in that.
Amazing. Well, what a great conversation. This is a lot longer than I thought it would be. I just checked the clock. But like you're a great storyteller, and you had a lot of very interesting things on your journey that I'm glad we had a chance to talk about. And I know it's going to help more people out there as they work through their own journey and the dreams they have too, and even the smells, to really take a moment and reflect on those, on that detail of their love and what that triggers. So I think this was a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on, taking the time, and like being vulnerable and opening up a side of your life that I said, like, many people just don't get a chance to hear.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. So thank you, because I think what you're doing is amazing. So thank you for letting me be a part of that.
All right, and just to wrap up with our stuff, please check out the griefdreams.ca website for more information on the topic. And we have a donation button on there. If you want to help us out, you can do that. Also, I have 2 talks coming up. So I'm going to be in the United States, Arlington, Virginia, on May 26th. There's a TAPS 25th National Military Survival Seminar. I'll be doing 2 talks there. And then also in Toronto, June 22nd, I'll be doing a workshop. If you want to learn more about how to work with these dreams and you live close to Toronto, that's the place to go. Also, if you have Facebook, and you can join the Grief Dreams Facebook group. You can share your dreams and hear others' dreams on there. Also, Twitter and Instagram at Grief Dreams. As we like to say at the podcast, with love and gratitude from us to you.
I have questions.
I have introduced myself. You have introduced yourself. This is a very good conversation.